One of the least talked about portions of the battle for Perryville would be the hand to hand combat that took place in the city itself. While we did briefly speak about this battle in our video concerning Henry Bottom's farm, we felt that it was worthy of a closer look as to what happened in the city of Perryville. We will be going back to the moment that the Confederate Brigadier Commander Colonel Samuel Powell of Anderson's division was retreating from his picket position at the bottom of Peters Hill. All aboard the Kentucky Tennessee Living Time Machine. Please fasten your seatbelts and keep your arms and legs inside of the vehicle at all times. But to get going, we need your help. We still need to fire up that time machine to transport us. Please help us by clicking on the like, subscribe, and bell notification buttons down below. Not only does this fire up the time machine for our flight back in time, but it convinces the YouTube algorithm that we need a bigger vehicle to reach more people who love history as much as you do. Now, back to our story. Quick backtrack. Confederate Brigade Commander Colonel Samuel Powell of Anderson's division had 3 additional regiments with him. They were the 29th Tennessee, 45th Alabama, and 24th Mississippi, and held his own artillery, Barrett's Missouri Battery, and the 1st Arkansas. Powell and his men were positioned at Edwards House Hill. Around 4 p.m., Powell was ordered to take 3 of his regiments and attack Brigadier General Philip H. Sheridan, who commanded the 11th Division of McCook's 3rd Corps Artillery. Sheridan's men were able to fend off the Confederate attack several times. Sheridan's men were reinforced by the 31st Brigade of Colonel William P. Carlin's Mitchell's division. Carlin's brigade consisted of the 15th Wisconsin, 21st and 38th Illinois, and the 101st Ohio Infantries. This proved to be too much for Powell, and he ordered the retreat of his men. The 15th Wisconsin tried to go around the fleeing Confederates to cut them off, but this was unsuccessful because of Colonel William F. Dowd of the 24th Mississippi. Seeing the fleeing men, Dowd fired his gun as they were in retreat. Thus, Carlin's surprise attack was thwarted. A thick thorn-covered fence was in the Wisconsin's way while they were in pursuit. They were finally able to clear this fence, but came under heavy fire from Barrett's battery above them. The 21st Illinois and the 15th Wisconsin, which were the lead Union regiments, reached the abandoned Edward House Hill. However, the Confederates' Barrett battery soon crossed the valley and started shelling Carlin's forces once again. With no choice in the matter, Carlin pushed his regiments forward. Even though the Confederate troops were weary from running, Powell did not let them stop until they reached the eastern edge of Seminary Hill, which was in the town of Perryville. There, they took up positions and waited. Chaplin's River Edge. Cemetery Hill is not to be confused with Seminary Hill. The Union was at Cemetery Hill, and the Confederates were at Seminary Hill. It was nearly 5:15 p.m. when the main body of Carlin and his troops reached the western edge of town. They found a stone fence that belonged to a cemetery and set up their positions there. The 15th Wisconsin and the 21st Illinois were involved in skirmishes in the center of Perryville in a community near Chaplin River. It was thought that the first of the 2 skirmishing regiments that finally reached the town was Company F under the command of Captain David Blackburn of the 21st Illinois Infantry. Carlin's men were joined by the 21st Brigade of Colonel George D. Wagner, Wood's Division, 2nd Corps, at the cemetery. Even though the Federals were in hot pursuit of the Confederate Army, once they reached the stone fence, they were pinned in. They took on heavy fire from the Confederate Army and could only take cover and wait. In the midst of this heavy fire, a section from Hotchkiss, Minnesota Battery, under the command of Lieutenant Richard L. Dowry, saved the day when they came behind Carlin's men and began opening fire on the Confederate guns. Confederate General Preston Smith was in command of the 1,700-man brigade. He had his brigade position themselves near the northeastern side of Perryville, along the Harrodsburg and Danville pikes. The brigade now entered the fight. Barrett's Missouri Battery continued to rain down shells upon the Federals. Company B of the 36th Mounted Illinois came to fight and bolster Carlin's left flank. Carlin then moved the 38th Illinois to his left, the 15th Wisconsin to the center, and the 21st Illinois on his right. The 101st Ohio was put into reserve. The hand-to-hand combat begins. Hotchkiss artillery was doing a great job in keeping the Confederates busy. Carlin used that opportunity to have his men fall back from the Chaplin's river's edge to the town of Perryville. Carlin positioned his men behind the houses that were located along Merchants Row. The men then opened fire upon the Confederates on the eastern edge. The Union skirmishes wreaked havoc upon Powell's brigade. The Confederates were able to overthrow the skirmishers' position. The fighting in Perryville intensified. Perryville was now hell on earth, with the raining down of musket shells and cannonballs. Even though Carlin's men were behind a stone wall behind a hill, many men were still being injured from the flying artillery shells and musket fire. Fighting in the dark. The sun had set and darkness soon fell. The cannons were now silent, but the fighting continued onward. Seizing an opportunity, Robert B. Mitchell sent orders to Carlin to reposition the 15th Wisconsin to the left of the Mackville Road. Mitchell thought that if the 15th was to come behind Powell, that they would be able to capture the town of Perryville. At that same time, Mitchell moved his last brigade under the command of Colonel William W. Caldwell to give support to Carlin. The Second Corps was stationed along the Lebanon Pike, but it began to move, and the plan was discovered by Union General Gilbert. Mitchell's plan was now in ruins, as General Gilbert ordered Mitchell to fall back to Sheridan's position on Peters Hill. Mitchell was confused by the orders, as Gilbert moved Caldwell's men to Bottom's Hill, and Carlin's main line was ordered towards Edward House Hill. Undeterred, Carlin maintained his picket line in and around town. Even though the artillery shells were no longer raining down upon both sides, shots could be heard in the moonlight air as soldiers from both sides continued fighting. Carlin's men were able to capture many men along the Mackville Road. Most of these men came from the 38th Illinois. Even after hearing the warning shots, dozens of men were captured, mostly escorts, doctors, and wounded men. A caisson belonging to the Washington Artillery and wagons were among the captured supplies. In next week's video, we will count up all of the casualties from the fighting of October 8th. Bragg will make a difficult decision as to whether or not the fight will continue with the dawn. And we will wrap up the last of the fight of Perryville as General Bragg turns his army south and out of the state of Kentucky. Thank you. Kentucky Tennessee Living would like to thank you for watching our video series on the Appalachian Civil War battles. Don't forget to hit that like button, as the more likes we receive, the more likely YouTube is to suggest our videos to other viewers. Also, to receive notice when we upload a new video, be sure to subscribe and click the bell notification button. Please be sure to double check that you are subscribed, as some of our viewers are finding that they are no longer subscribed to our channel. We thank you for continuing to support Kentucky Tennessee Living as we are discovering the mysteries in Appalachian history.